Hi everybody, and welcome back to the live stream. Happy Valentine's Day. I am Danielle Morimoto, and I'm a designer here at Adobe, joined by another fellow Adobe designer, Jeannie Huang. So welcome.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. You guys saw me yesterday for day 1 of our UX Live week, and today is day 2, and then we're going to be back on tomorrow for day 3.
Absolutely, yes. So yesterday Jeannie was on and we were designing in Adobe XD, the prototyping tool, and so we'll give a little recap of what happened yesterday in case you weren't able to join us. And then for the next 2 hours we will continue with the workflow and design out a bit more. But before we get started, I want to let you guys know that make sure that you're signed into the Behance chat and being active on the chat, because we do have giveaways today. And as usual, we have some socks, which will be the prize for today for the giveaway. So make sure that you're signed in and being active. And then we also have a contest, the daily contest going on. And so in the challenge tab of the chat, you can check out more information around how to participate and the contest for today. The theme is Dashboard UI, and so we have a kit that you can download, and there's the link in that challenge tab. I'll go through the challenge a bit more later, so you can see a little detail as to what it really involves, but you can have at least 3 screens that are linked together and send that on over and you can submit. And if you win the contest, you'll win a 1-year subscription to the Creative Cloud, which is awesome, yes. And so let us know in the chat right now where you're joining us from. Yes, in the chat, everybody, nice socks, woo socks.
Or hand puppets.
Sweet socks. Yes, yeah. These socks, well, someone actually told me these socks look really large. I don't know, maybe it's just like my hands are really small. I think this is another reason why tomorrow I should demo my personal Adobe socks, so you can see how they really look on people's feet. I don't know.
Do you think it's a collector's edition? Like you collect all of them, all the colors, all the
that'd be great.
You know,
all the swag of all the products.
Lightroom, Photoshop.
Yeah. We should have them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And so that sounds good. Why don't we go ahead and get started? You can sort of recap a little bit around some of the questions. So yeah, we have people joining in. Holly joining from Missouri. We have Laura from Cleveland. Thank you guys for joining us. We have her from France, so all over the place. And make sure that you're asking questions in the chat. We will try to answer as many as we can. Anything from what Jeannie's working on in the prototyping tool to questions around the product, our process, career questions. And so that sort of leads to where we want to get started today. We know that there were a lot of questions in the chat for those of you who joined us yesterday that we weren't necessarily able to get to. And so we were able to sort of go through and pick a couple big themes that sort of slipped through the cracks, and we thought that we would start by sort of answering some of those questions. And again, if you have any other questions for us, send them into the chat and we'll start answering them. But one of the questions and themes we were seeing was around product thinking, and so how do you find the right problem to solve? So Jeannie, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I looked at the question and I thought Raphael's question was so good, really solid, because I think this is critical, mission critical to kind of our industry right now, is that product design and UI, UX design, right? It's not just about making things beautiful, but actually solving problems. And we talk a lot about dark UX patterns, which is when you use UX to purposefully mislead people or to like cause them to do actions that might not benefit them, but might benefit, let's say, the company that you're working for. And those are like very serious like things that UX designers need to contend with, because our design can change how people interact with the world, right? It's kind of like someone who does signage designs for cities. Like it can be amazing and really useful, or it can be like super bad and confusing, and that can lead to even worse consequences like accidents. So I think UX design has that capability of like, you know, either shedding light or causing a lot of confusion and potentially bad consequences. And I think finding the right problem involves a couple of things. One is like being committed to understanding like the commitment that your company has to a specific mission. So this is important to me because at Behance, we're always committed to the mission of, empowering creatives. We are interested in giving creatives jobs. And I think that kind of mission critical understanding of why I do what I do is useful. It's important, and it helps me solve the right problems versus just like designing things for the sake of making it beautiful, right? And then the second is like being unconditionally like consistent with your own personal value system. In other words, like if you don't think creatives should have jobs, don't work at Behance, because that's just what they care about. And then if you do care about that, then you should find somewhere where like their value system matches up with your value system, and that can be tough. I think that's definitely like a big part of picking a design job in your career.
Totally, yeah. And I also think like focusing and listening to your users is really important. Like listen to your customers. They will tell you the problems that they're having, and that will become evident. And so I think that that's also really important.
Yep.
Great. So we also were hearing sort of this theme on UI elements. So do you always create a mood board elements before starting your design process? And then we also heard from Kevin, who I think is on the stream again today. How long does it take you to set up all the assets that you are using? It's a lot of decision making to define these things.
Right. So I think the mood board elements section is pretty atypical for the kind of design work that we do. And it's not to say that we don't do any of it. It's just that usually when, like, if you're in-house, you are going to be focused on an established UI system, right? I work at a pretty big company, so it's going to already be, there's some level, someone has already sat down and thought about like, what should this look like? Why are we like, what are the types of look and feel that we're looking for, right? Like material design for Google, like there's an entire team, all they do is material design. And so if you work at Google, you're not so concerned with like, oh, do I need an element? Do I need to like consider like the specific padding for an asset? And I think this kind of work is really important for laying down the groundwork for the actual sitting down and like framing and solving a problem. And that just happens to be where my expertise is. So yeah, to answer the question, I don't really do a lot of the UI element stuff. In this case, I had to because we were making a whole new mock site. Yeah. But typically I would maybe rely on someone else to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, and then we had another set of questions. I don't know if you want to go to the next set. We had, we were hearing a lot around sort of learning and growing as a designer, sort of some career questions and just questions around that in general. So when you were starting out, were you afraid not to deliver?
Yeah.
And then I have a UX designer job right now, currently faking it till I make it. How did you fill in your knowledge gaps?
Yeah, so I think faking it till you make it was something I brought up earlier. So because I don't have a design degree. And I think it's important that when you're faking it till you make it, and also when you're trying new things, and to allow yourself a certain, I guess, space for failure. And that's hard, right? I think that requires a lot of like self-awareness and emotional modulation, that you're doing a lot of work, even when you fail, right? To say like, hey, I didn't do it the way I wanted to. I didn't meet the bar that I expected to. How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? It's okay not to get it right on the first try. It's okay not to get it on the 5th try. But the important thing is to continue working on it and to allow yourself that space to say, I'm going to try. I'm going to figure out why I'm doing this, how I'm going to improve, who can I learn from. And then the who can I learn from is, I think, really critical for filling in those knowledge gaps, is like saying, are there mentors I can learn from? If there aren't mentors in my life, maybe I can like look at other people's work and kind of learn and grow from that. Like take a couple of great designers that you really love and like study their work and try to really understand that.
Yeah, I think it's great to, like, off of your point, surround yourselves with other people that you can really learn from, and to find mentors where you can and have that sort of network, and so you can learn as much as possible. And I think everybody that you'll find, like everyone has to start somewhere, and everyone started somewhere early on in their career. And so another great question also to ask your mentors is sort of, when you were earlier on in your career, like what do you wish you would have known? And I think everyone sort of has interesting answers to that, I found.
Yep.
But everyone has been there, and so don't be afraid, again, like Jeannie sort of said, to fail sometimes, but push yourself as much as you can.
And totally understand that career is not a linear path. There's very few people whose career is a linear path, right? A lot of times you get a job because you intern somewhere and someone who wasn't even your boss ended up taking a real shine to your work, and like that leads you. I've heard of those stories. I've heard of people totally changing careers at 40, 50, 60 and like finding a lot of joy in that. And so career doesn't have to be this thing of like, you know, I think people want established designer to say, let me prescribe you a path for how to walk forward. But the answer is that there is no one linear path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so our last sort of area we wanted to talk about of the questions we saw yesterday was sort of around specs and development, so the sort of later half of the design process and when you start to sort of hand it off for engineering. So how do you transfer to the development team the design specs? And then how easy would it be to code this site? Do you also think about what could be possible for the devs to code?
Yeah. I think, so the way that I love to work the most, I definitely have a personal preference for this, and my team has a personal preference, is I really, really highly prefer working right next to a development team. I know remote work is becoming more popular. It's something really trendy and people talk about that a lot, but I think there's a lot to be said for establishing like a really great relationship with your dev team, and like, so that it's not just about like handoff, right? It's not like I have a final asset, I'm just gonna hand it off and then like you gotta do your work, and it becomes this like fight, right? It's like us versus you. And I think that's a terrible way to kind of build product. Generally, product works best, and designers actually work best when we focus a lot on the soft skills, on people skills, on learning how to talk to development, learning from them, being humble in our approach. And I think that is always like a great place to start, to say like, hey, you're an expert in back-end development. I am not. I'd love to learn about what you do and what makes it tick and how I can like kind of help you with my designs. Like maybe there's something I can do to kind of assist in making this process smoother. And then so sitting side by side with someone, a lot of the nuances of like their facial expression or like how they feel that day, the things in their life that might be impacting their work, right? You know, they're feeling sick or something is happening at home that, you know, isn't great, or they're feeling really great and like great things have been happening and you can really enjoy that with them. I think those are like kind of the things that we deprioritize when we talk about process, right? We think that's not important. But when we really look at process, like smoothing the path between two people is a great way to speed up process.
Absolutely, yeah. And so also like in XD, I think this is a great time to sort of switch over. There is a little bit more, we didn't quite get to showing what happens sort of in the later process, but when it comes to the design engineering handoff, XD does start to try and handle this a little bit more, and so I just want to make sure that we show this off as well sometimes. So you know that you can go ahead and publish a prototype link, but right now there's also a beta feature called Publish Design Specs. And so if you go ahead and create a prototype here, and I'm just going to make this my landing page, if I go ahead and click on Design Publish Specs and create a public link, this will create a beta red line. And so you can now have a link where you can go in and so you can sort of send this off to your engineers to take a look at all of the different specific specs of a document. And so we can take a look at this link. Up. So here now, when I click on here, so this is the landing page that Jeannie was actually designing yesterday. But now you'll see when I click through, there are all of these different specs here, and it's giving me all of the numbers. So this is great for handing off to development teams. You can also see some of the treatments that were here, the appearance and more specificity around opacity and things like that. So this is also just a really great feature. Right now it's in beta, and so it's still being worked on, but this is the start of trying to think about, for the product for XD, like how do we continue that workflow from that handoff from design to engineering. But this is a great start, and we've actually been using it here within Adobe. I know like I myself have been recently helping out Document Cloud team, and we have been using this beta feature to hand off to our engineering teams so that they can get the specs pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, since this is a beta feature, I personally haven't used it a ton. So the way that my team happens to hand off is that I sit next to one of the best front-end developers I have ever met in my life, Jackie, and she kind of will just look at my specs in XD, like she has XD on her computer, and then she kind of just looks at it and she measures it herself there. And I think that works particularly well. We were actually talking about this a little bit this morning, but like that works well when under two conditions. One is when you have a really small team, and one is when your team sits locally, like within a certain distance where you can like be face to face.
Absolutely. That's like on the chat, Jim was just mentioning, I work remote. This feature will be huge for the teams I work with.
Exactly. And so like Danielle works with tons of teams that span across continents, maybe hundreds of developers at any given moment. I mean, maybe not on one project, but lots, right?
Yeah.
And in those cases, I think having specs and being able to kind of be explicit about your design is really useful.
Yeah, you said, we were talking about this earlier. I've worked previously on a project, the engineers I was working with wanted to be a bit more iterative and liked being really hands-on and going into the files and looking at everything themselves. But that was sort of one style that they really liked. However, like Jeannie was saying, for those teams that are remote and for groups they can't be as collaborative with, this feature has been really helpful for making sure that we're communicating everything correctly.
Yep.
Great. So just wanted to show off this feature. I think, Jeannie, we can jump back into your screen and take a look at where you left off, and you can kind of give us a little summary. And then for the next 2 hours, just under, we will have Jeannie be prototyping in Adobe XD.
Yep. So yesterday we were working on a problem, which is the problem for our mock project is a website that helps you find a florist and start a process of chatting with them and getting well on your way with a contract, ideally in one visit. That would be the kind of ideal use case that we're going to try to work towards. And so the way that I kind of framed it is I tend to generally like UI where it's really explicit, right? Like my example yesterday was Airbnb, but lots of other places do this where, you land on their page, airbnb.com, and it's just really obvious. It just has a big location search bar, and you're like, it'll say like find homes in, and then it'll give you like example, San Francisco, California. And you're like, wow, I know exactly what this is for. This is for like finding a vacation home for a couple days. So I think that's the kind of UI I was trying to go for here, is to be really explicit. So it says find a florist near, and I gave it 2 parameters. One is near your location, and one is with the perfect style. So one is location and one is style specific. We also talked about giving you a little bit of context. So here you can say, it shows you how many florists I have in my database. I have kind of sign-ins, sign-up thought process going on for later. And then also just the idea that maybe if I were to scroll down on this page, I would already start seeing content pretty quickly and easily. And then here I can actually play this. We looked at kind of this sort of what it would look like for hover states, what it would look like if you were to, select it and try to select a location, what it would look like if you had hovered over the style parameter, selected a style, and then the content at the bottom would actually change. We also, let me see here. We also kind of thought about what this would look like down here. A nice use of repeat grid, seeing like different cards for different florists.
Yes, one of my favorite features, repeat grid.
And then I went ahead and also thought a little bit about what it would look like tablet, but I think we'll ideally go in a little more either today or tomorrow about how I would do responsive design for a page like this.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really wanted to look at today was, what happens if you do select, let me see if I can find it. What would happen if I did select one of these cards, right? So you would sort for find a florist near California with the perfect style. You would sort by selecting the parameters, and then you would get a large variety of cards. So what would happen here? So one thing I've been thinking about is my call to action correct? Right? Because right now I had kind of designed it with this in mind that you could immediately chat, but that seems kind of complicated because, I would need to make a chat in a pop-up up here, and that seems less than ideal, right? Because you could click out of the pop-up by accident. It could just be a UX kind of nightmare. And really, what is it that I would expect to see here? So I think my CTA is actually wrong, and it should actually be that you should see the florist or see the florist's profile. So each of these would be separate florist shops.
Oh yeah, so like for the user, you'd want to get a bit more detail before you even want to start chatting at this point.
So maybe we'll even say see their work, right? And
yeah, and so to answer a question on the chat, Johnny just asked, are these like fashion florists? And so this is actually some work that Jeannie has done on the side that Jeannie does sort of these floral designs, and these are some of the photographs that she has of, you said even yesterday on the chat that some of these people are your friends. They're not just like models that you've hired, which is really fun. So yeah, these are some of Jeannie's work.
Yep. This is like what I do when I'm not doing product design.
Yeah. When she's not working on Behance and making Behance.
Yeah.
Got some of these.
Yeah, and also this is designed on a grid, 12 column grid that you can kind of see here. So if you hit Shift Command apostrophe, or if you select the artboard and check out the grid here, you can check it on and off. You can see that it's kind of designed against a 12 column grid so that I can eventually break it down to three across rows or 4 across rows for responsive design. So, so yeah, I think this is great. So I think I'm gonna see their work, and I'll go ahead and copy. I actually don't need to copy it because we'll prototype that later. But I'm gonna go down here and I made a little column here, and you'll notice that yesterday I talked about creating sections with my for my XD board, so that you understood anyone who opened my board would be like, I totally understand what is happening with each of these rows. And the one hack I like to do is, yesterday I had actually placed this text above, like I placed it like so, like up here, to denote like the category for each row. But if you actually place it inside of an artboard, it makes it really easy for you to export it later, because if you were to select a bunch of these like this and then just export it, you would be able to see like a PDF where it would say like pitch, and then it would go through all of them, and then mood board and go through all of them. So I think that's really useful, like
it's
a little
also
trick.
Really helpful when you just later on realize you need to move some artboards around, and if you have text that's just outside of an artboard, things are not going to move altogether. So it's great to put everything on an artboard. That is a great tip.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make another artboard here under Florist Profile. This is just like a 1920 width, one of the defaults that XD has here. So if you click on artboard, I could have done it via this too. On web, I think it's like underneath Danielle's head, like if you want to go like that. Right here. Yeah, that 1920.
Ooh, I can't.
There we go.
That guy.
So that kind of 1920 is one way to open it. I just kind of copy paste. And I always start with desktop first, just because I know my audience for Behance, people tend to look at it on really big iMac screens. And in this case, because that's like my focus as a web designer, that's where I'm going to start. So here's my 1920 web thing, and I can just go ahead and label this Florist Profile. And then I'll go and add the navigation that we had earlier, right? Because I'm probably going to need the navigation and little illustrations that I had back here. So let's go back down and check it against my use default. There you go. My 12 column grid. And I have these little UI elements here that I've been using as kind of placeholder, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I've just been using them to kind of scatter these like transparent little doodly things all over the screen to give it like a nice element, something interesting and quirky that kind of points to the fact that it's a floral site, and
yeah, it's giving it like a nice little whimsical sort of feeling style to the site.
Yeah, and I would love when, like, if we were to actually deliver this to a developer to say like, hey, let's do some sort of parallax scrolling so it like kind of reacts differently for while you're scrolling. So I'll delete this for now, and I'll go ahead and just think about like, so again, I'm coming from this grid, I'm taking from this card, and it says see their work, I think. And what would I see if I were to click on that, right? So I love to think about profile pages with nice, big, beautiful images, right? Because in this case, the work has to be front and center. And there's a couple of things, I can actually make a little list here. Sometimes I do this when I'm designing, like my boss will be debriefing me about a project or something that he's like interested in, and I'll just, off the artboard, just kind of make a little list of like things I need to think about, things I need to kind of consider. So we'll probably need some like nice big images. showcase their work. You can see that the way I talk about work is always going to be in the context of Behance, because Behance's tagline is showcase and discover creative work.
I was going to say, a lot of this is very similar to Behance now.
It's hard, you know, that's just my whole
themes,
life.
I know, yeah, you can't help it.
We'll probably need some sort of like, you know, profile content, profile details, right? Like their website, maybe their social media handles, some way to contact them. Contact me. Because this is like pretty mission critical to what we're doing here, is I want them to start talking to a florist immediately. And maybe during that contact, we can also think about like their status, because then we can have it be live, right? Kind of like what we're doing now, but like live chatting and just saying like, oh, are you online? Yes, no. So online status. And then I think maybe what's important is I love to connect the threads from where we were before, whatever screen we're at before, to the screen that we're at now. So in the screen before, we were talking about having parameters, right? Like their location parameter and then the style parameter. And I want to always, like when I bring people from one page to another, to connect those dots of like, here's where you came from and here's why I dropped you here. And then here's where you're going. Like you always kind of know as you're like navigating what, you know, why I brought you here.
Yeah, you want it to be sort of this seamless experience for sure.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do something about like, just like a hint towards like, hey, you selected San Francisco and like you thought their style was like this here. So I'll make this nice and big for us. Whoa, too big. All right, so I'll go ahead and design this.
And before we jump too far into the design, I do also want to, I know we're getting a lot of questions on the chat around the challenge. People are asking, Kaylee, I know, what time is the challenge due? So I just want to go over a little bit more about today's daily challenge. So I have up the link that I showed yesterday as well, but we have a theme for today, which is Dashboard UI Kit. But this is a great little article if you want to read a little bit more around how we hired 5 talented designers and asked them to create UI kits using Adobe XD, and these are free for you guys to download and use. And so there's more information in the challenge tab. But today's is the Dashboard UI Kit by Peck, and so I just wanted to open this up and give you guys a little sense of what it is. And like Jeannie was actually just talking about, again, like this UI kit has an artboard sort of titling each of the sections, similar to what Jeannie has been doing. And so there's UI elements, and I'll zoom out so you can sort of get a sense of everything that's in this UI kit, which there's so much to play with. Sign up and sign in, dashboard, inbox, products, and there's a lot of fun things. But you'll see all of these UI elements from the colors and icons. And again, remember that if you click over in the bottom left-hand corner, you can access the assets panel, and you'll see that this file already has these loaded in here. And so you can access all of the fonts really quickly, as well as some of these symbols that they have preloaded in the document. So these are great. And then the great thing about these UI kits is that they're already hooked up as well. So I can just press the play button, and if you're more of a first-time user, you can start to experience what Adobe XD is all about, which is a lot of this prototyping in here, and start to click through and play with this. But for the challenge today, try to make this unique to your own ideas, change the theme up a bit and the content, and play with this. And we will be looking at submissions throughout the stream, and then at the very end of our stream today, so in around an hour and a half, or just under an hour and a half, we will be picking a winner, and the winner will win a 1-year subscription to the Creative Cloud. So make sure to try and submit to today's challenge with the Dashboard UI Kit.
Great.
Yeah, and thanks for all the questions in the chat. Yeah, Johnny, this UI kit is awesome. I agree. So yeah, we can jump back to Jeannie.
Great. So sometimes I'll do this while I'm designing is I'm like, oh, I just need to refer to something, but I don't want to copy the same artboard, so I'll just take the element and bring it back to the artboard that I'm working on just for now. So I'll go ahead and just make this a little shorter. I don't need the whole repeat grid. I just want to refer to like, where am I coming from? Is there content that I need to refer to? So here I have my 12 column grid. Here we go. And I love this idea of like bringing in a nice big image at the top and then giving you like some sort of overlay. I really like pages with that kind of dimension, especially since we talked about having the little icons and the little graphics kind of float above with parallax. I just generally like that sense, being a little consistent across a site. So from an interface point of view. So I kind of just like this, where we'd have like a nice big image up top. We'd have a little like kind of like a header section to kind of denote their profile. Just a round profile image because that's like trendy now. I do prefer round profile images, but partially also because I think it's a great way to kind of differentiate between different types of content. So like round would be a profile or a person, and then square would be like kind of like assets or images that aren't about profiles.
Yeah.
So I've also gone ahead and just thought about.
Yeah, I feel like we're seeing that a lot recently in designs. I even like comes to mind like Spotify. If you use Spotify, you'll see a lot, especially on their mobile design, that differentiation between user profiles being sort of that circular design versus, yes, Johnny on the chat, shape identity is a good way to put it.
Yes.
Versus, you know, using the squares for more items or albums in Spotify's case.
Yep. So I've gone ahead and given myself a little bit of text here. I'm gonna put a little description text, and I can just take that from what we had before, just to be consistent. And so I think that's a pretty good framing just in the beginning of like, what should it look like if, you know, I landed on a profile. We'll just populate some images. I kind of like to do this, you know, back and forth so that you know what things look like. Again, I tend to design in high fidelity mocks, which is why I use the, you know, I use real images. I try to use real text. I try to really give you the sense of what the website's going to look like instead of just using kind of wireframes. I suppose technically you could stop here and be like, this is my wireframe. But with XD, it's so fast.
It is really fast, yeah.
So.
And I want to make sure to answer this question. Brian on the chat is asking, does all the font bases and sizes you use automatically save on the left? That's a great question. Thanks for sending it in. So you have the assets panel open on the left side. Jeannie actually added these manually with the plus icon, so you can add them in yourself. So not every single font you have on the artboard or ever use will automatically go there. It's sort of once you have a text on your artboard that you want to have as an asset, or you want to have sort of as a style guide in some sense, you can press the plus button and sort of add that to that queue over on the left side. So you sort of curate that yourself.
Yep. And another trick I like to do is, just like in Photoshop or in Illustrator, if you select an element and you're like, hey, I want it to be really specific. I'm not just like arbitrarily picking a height for something, right? So this little card I have of the person's profile, I want it to be 50 pixels or a certain like nice round number of pixels above. I'm not just like, it's 84, unless 84 happens to fit into your grid of whatever. I just work in units of 10. It's just nice and easy. Like a bad habit of mine. So like you can just select a bunch of things. So I selected everything in this card. I aligned it to the bottom of it, and I just hit shift, and then you hit the up arrow, and that gives you, every up arrow of that hit gives you 10 pixels. Yep. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it's not enough. And this is
across almost every Adobe product. You can use this shortcut. It's a great one. Shift arrow, and it'll go 10 pixels at a time.
Yep. Oh, I totally forgot. We were going to talk about an extra prize I had today.
Oh, you have an extra prize?
I have an extra prize.
Yeah, so we do have the giveaway. Remember, if you are active in the chat today, we have the socks. If you are just joining us, be active in the Behance chat, and you can win some socks, some extra swag. But what was the extra swag that you
Okay, so I work for a team. I mean, I work for Behance, obviously. And Behance, one of the teams that we have is 99U. It's a creative magazine that allows you to kind of learn about what's new in the creative world. It covers all kinds of creative disciplines. There were potters, there are graphic designers. There are just great sort of like, you know, editorials about like topics like the Olympics or, you know, what kind of design goes into an Olympic uniform. So I think that's really great. And that team actually sits with Behance, and they're part of our Behance little area. And the designer who works on it sits next to me, Mark Brooks. He's one of the best designers I've ever met in my life for graphic design. So really, I highly recommend kind of looking at his work. And I'm happy to send the winner of our challenge today a copy of the newest 99U magazine. You can see that here. So this is Mark's profile on Behance. And you can see it's just really beautiful. It's like super well designed. On the cover is, I forgot her name, Jen from Pentagram. She's one of the partners at Pentagram and one of the only Asian American women who is like a partner at like a major design agency. She's just great. I like love her talk for 99U because we have a conference every year, and so she spoke at last year's conference, and I loved everything she said.
99U, for those of you who haven't heard of it before, is a great conference. I know I went last year. I know you've gone multiple times. But yes, these are like beautifully designed, great pieces. So that'd be awesome. Yeah, we have a little extra incentive for today.
Yeah. So I'll send you one of those if you send something in. And we really want to see you guys, make the existing style guide, the one that you added.
Yeah, so this is for the contest winner.
Yeah, the contest winner.
For today. So if you use the dashboard UI kit, Jeannie and the Behance team are saying that they will give a little magazine for the 99U.
Yep.
Yeah, so you have, about, I'm not good at math, an hour, a little over an hour to submit to the challenge, and the details are in the challenge tab in the Behance chat. So check it out.
So I've gone ahead and I've populated, Lambert is a floral studio that I really look up to. I've never met them, but I'm gonna do it this week while I'm in San Francisco. But
I know you mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah, he's really great. So I just kind of dropped in an image of him because that kind of makes sense, right? You kind of want to know. A profile image isn't just an arbitrary image. It really makes a big difference when you're like trying to find a vendor or hire somebody that you know that it's a real person. So there's that. And then I'll probably need some sort of button here. Maybe like a contact. Start chat now. Yesterday we talked about how I really like using now in all of my CTAs.
Very action oriented.
Yeah, I'm like, do it now. And maybe we can do some sort of, let me see. We really should do some sort of like indication that this guy is actually online. He's like ready. When I say start chat now, he's like literally online waiting for you to chat him. So we'll just give a little bit of.
Yeah. And there's Gelso Designs in the chat asking, I've never used XD before, but being that I've experienced with other tools such as Illustrator and Sketch, how easy would it be to learn? And I would say if you have experience with Illustrator previously, definitely XD is trying to move forward with being much more straightforward and simplistic. We have more simple UI, just even on the outsides, you'll see way less tools and clutter than we have typically had in the past. And so I think that it's a lot easier to sort of come in and get started with the product. Yeah, Maya's saying super easy in all caps. And I agree. It has been one of the easier products to learn and get started with. So take the time maybe today to look through the dashboard UI kit and start to play with that and see how quick it is to learn.
Right. So here I am, and I've put in a kind of status, right? This guy's online now. We'll give a little red dot, and then maybe when he's not online, we'll give a different indication. So we'll do a couple of different states here. And then we'll also give him some sort of, let's see. We'll work on something here, but let's just flesh out the rest of this page because I kind of think it's going to be interesting to look at. I'll turn on my grid again and just look at what could be here. So I think, I've only given one big header image to kind of say like, this is the kind of work I do, super beautiful. But you're going to want to see more than that in a portfolio of floral work. So we're going to go ahead and drop in some images. And I'll do it to my grid. And I kind of, because I've set it up for 12, like I said, I can either do 3 across or 4 across. I'm going to do 3 across, and this is actually somewhat intentional because I had already done 3 across prior, I believe. Yeah, I had done 3 across up here. So I just wanted to be a little consistent. Or maybe I don't want to be consistent. I wanted to kind of look different. That could be the other way to think about it, Yeah. I think there's a case you can make for both. And In this case, I think the bigger the image, the better it is. And then what's really cool about this is I think I'm gonna go ahead and not make this a repeat grid and actually try to design something that looks a little bit more Pinteresty. I think it's like a nice way to lay out different types of images. I'm just gonna fake this with these boxes here.
So you're gonna vary the heights of each of these.
Yep.
Nice.
So that kind of like gives us this mosaic feel. And you can see as I drag it that there's like a little indicator here. And I know that each of my columns are about 20 pixels, have not about, exactly 20 pixels in between each column. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that this also is 20 pixels above or padding between each
Yeah, what's that
image.
hotkey that you're holding down as you're going through to see the...
I'm just doing shift to if I wanna do 10, and then even if I zoom in, I'll just see the kind of number, the little fuchsia number.
Yeah.
So you can do this and then hit shift and then go down twice and it'll just go straight to 20. Nice little handy trick there. There you go.
And so we have a question in the chat. Kevin is wondering, what do you think about pixel perfect design? Apps, web, logos?
I think as a designer, it's useful and good to have pixel perfect design. I think understanding development is also good, and knowing that pixel perfect might not actually show up the way that you expect on the web. So a really common example is like cross-browser support for how something gets rendered. It's not gonna look exactly the same on IE 11, and it's definitely not gonna look the same on IE 8, which please don't support IE 8, it's not great. I don't think you can even do rounded corners on a button for IE 8, so you would have to like crop out an image maybe if you wanted to make it look a certain way. So you know that it's not going to like look exactly the same. But I think it's good as a designer to kind of have a rhyme or reason to like how you design. So yeah, pixel perfect is useful for us. Expectations, I lowered a little bit when I see it in production. Not lower it so much that it would look ugly or look terrible, but just understanding that there are certain technological constraints that might change, right? A font could render differently. If, let's say, you know, you didn't serve the right font for whatever reason and it's like failing, and they're gonna serve you like the, you know, the computer's like standard font, like Arial or whatever, it's gonna look different. So being aware of that, I think, is useful.
Yeah, I also think with pixel perfect design, there's a time and a place. So knowing sort of when you need to have pixel perfect designs and when you can just kind of get the concept across, and it can be sort of more of a loose prototype. So there's sort of a time when you need to have, you know, ship ready designs, and it does need to have, you know, those pixels and everything really focused in, versus you're just trying to get a concept across, and you really don't need to spend all your time focusing on the pixels.
All right, so I got in and dropped in some images. Yeah, I really like how this is looking. Might give them a little bit of rounded corners, or maybe not. Maybe we'll leave it as it is to kind of differentiate from the top, you know?
Awesome, yeah. And so for those of you who are just joining the chat, Jeannie here works with the Behance team in New York for Adobe, and is designing in Adobe XD, our prototyping tool, right now a profile page, yesterday the landing page, for her floral designs.
Yeah. So I don't want it to be so intensely like so rounded, so I'm just gonna give it a little, I gave it a little 3-point rounded corner here just to make it feel kind of nice and soft. A lot of the design for this one happens to be very, dare I say it, feminine, like kind of soft, and the colors are really warm and rosy, and the flowers are kind of delicate. So just thinking about a little bit about that. Recently there's been a big trend in brutalist websites, and one of my coworkers, Kathy, loves brutalist websites. Have you ever seen them? They're just like intense, like harsh graphics and like fonts. It's cool. It's really, really cool. But that's just kind of not what we're going for today.
Yeah, and also, oh, it just went away. We have the giveaway in 15 minutes. And so make sure that you're signed into the Behance chat and being active in the chat, asking us questions. You guys have had some great questions so far, and you can win XD socks. I know, yeah, Mitch was saying giveaway hype. This is some giveaway hype moments right here. The great socks.
And so one thing I like to do is I think I'm gonna have the user on board right after this, right? I want them to like start their chat and then feel like they're already kind of committed to the onboarding process. I think lots of places do this. My favorite example of this is Duolingo. So Duolingo, what they'll do is they'll actually tell you like, hey, we can teach you how to speak a language online. And they'll actually run you through a little tutorial on how to speak a language of your choice, like Swedish or French. And this tutorial is really, really easy. And you're like, you do it for like 2 minutes and you're like, wow, I'm like so good. I'm already speaking French. And then they hit you with a pop-up screen of like onboard then. And I think that's great. I think really like this idea that the user, users who aren't committed to it will, naturally phase out. And the users who are committed, when they hit that pop-up, like sign up pop-up or sign up like page, they're not like shocked. They're like, yeah, I do want to learn French. Or in this case, I do want to chat with a florist, right? And one thing I really love using is a resource called User Onboard, useronboard.com, and it's someone who writes down like how not every, but a lot of really, really great brands and apps out there have used to like onboard, and like he kind of walks through like UX best practices for like, why should you have terms of services here? Why shouldn't you use an image here? So I think that's really, really great. So useronboard.com, I refer to a lot. I love learning from people like him, really, really thorough. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'm gonna make it like on the top here, this big blank spot. I think I'm gonna actually start that process of like, can I collect a little bit of information from you, get you to be a little bit committed and know what you're about to do, and then hit you with an onboarding pop-up right before you chat that person.
Nice.
So I'll go ahead and I'm just thinking about my what I want from them, and I think what would be really great is if I could collect their email now, right? Just to be like, your messages, we're gonna take your messages and send it to you in case that they fail the next onboarding pop-up. I'll at least have their email to be able to ping them and be like, hey, remember when you were looking at Lambert? Like he's available right now, or etc. So I think email would be great. And then also if we can say like what kind of event that you're doing, that would be really great. So we'll change it from country to like event. Maybe I don't even want to give it like a blank sort of label. Like I don't like it when it just says like event. I like it when it's like kind of personable and it questions you. It's like, what type of event are you having? This might be a little long. Short text is also good though. What's your event? There you go. A little personality there.
Nice.
And then select an event type.
Cool. And while Jeannie's working on that, I do want to take a look at some of the submissions that we've gotten in so far for the contest today. So in the challenge tab, check out the contest. But we have one in here from Lindsay, No Shave November. Let's take a look. So we're going to click through. So we're going to log in here. Great. So we have November.
Map detail there.
We have the big thing here. Let's see, where do we click? We have the inbox, the dashboard. Nice. So it looks like you've changed some of the colors a bit of the dashboard and so some of these tones. You can click in the Help Center and see some of the FAQs and then the settings as well. Nice. So I think this is a great start. I like that you started to change some of the styles, so the colors of what we have existing in the dashboard UI kit. Love to see even more, like pushing and creating some more new elements, but I like that you sort of styled it and have this Movember sort of movement happening here, and the little icon with the stash. So thanks for submitting.
Can I see the inbox again? Just out of curiosity.
Here we go.
That's great. Yeah, inboxes are hard. That was one of the projects I did on Behance when I first joined. And I realized it was such a big process to make one. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, and so make sure that you're submitting to the challenge, and the more unique you can sort of make it and stylize it yourself off of the dashboard UI kit, the better chance you have of winning the prize today, which is a free subscription to the Creative Cloud. And we will be picking a winner at the end of the hour. So, man, time. In like 40 minutes, we'll be picking a winner, I want to say.
Time flies.
Yes, time's going by today.
All right. So I've gone ahead, and here you can kind of see my thinking where it's kind of sloppy still. I've gone ahead and dropped in a Facebook, Twitter here because I feel like, you know, I've given them a way to go to that person's URL. I probably need some sort of like nice big, like, you know, everyone nowadays is on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, so I just dropped a few icons there. And then on the right side, I'm gonna finish up like what it would look like if you were to be able to get started, right? Like, and I'm pretty explicit, get started with Lambert Floral Studio. So I'm gonna go ahead and center this and take my email thing and my event type.
Yeah, and Erin in the chat says I'm currently redesigning like the company's, the chat went away, onboarding process, so this would be really helpful.
Oh, great, I'm glad. Yeah, onboarding is a big thing, right? You know, we spend a lot of time thinking about growth and how to improve, like, you know, when you're signing up, like, do you feel like you're comfortable? Do you understand what's happening? So for sure, onboarding is like a process that, you know, you start designing, and that's really where iterative design is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kathy on the chat, I'm new with XD. I already use other Adobe products. What project should I start with to learn and get a good experience? If you're new to XD, we have the challenge going on today, so I would even just download the dashboard UI kit again and start maybe trying out the challenge and making it your own and changing some of the click-throughs and playing with that. That might be a good place to start.
Great. So I've gone and I've, you know, you can kind of see my column. There's like a little bit of thinking here where I'm like, I'm going to do 3 columns with a little bit of padding around it. That's the rationale for making about how wide I'm going to make the little section on the right for contacting.
Okay.
So you can kind of see it here. So it's pretty straightforward. It says, oh, I just zoomed out all the way. You land in it. I'm going to close this so you can see more of it.
And awesome, Brian on the chat, you just synced the fonts to start playing with the dashboard UI kit. That's great. Yeah, hopefully you'll send in the submission and we can take a look at it. And we have someone on the chat saying that they really love your work, so keep it up.
That's really nice. I struggle with imposter syndrome like everyone in the modern day millennial age. And it's something that I think we talk about a lot of designers, right? And so it's really nice when you affirm other people and you tell them like, hey, I really see you're improving in your work. Because everyone's always like, am I? Is it good? Am I crazy? What's going on? So that's very nice of you. Thank you. All right, so here we go. I think this is like pretty straightforward, right? You're gonna hit this guy's profile. You see his stuff and you're like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. I love his big image. I can see more of his portfolio work here. I can get started right now and see, just drop in my email and select an event type. I haven't asked for anything intense like a budget. I haven't asked for anything complicated like a password. I just like dropped it in real quick. And then, so let's see if we knocked off everything. We got nice big images. We got profile details. We got a website. We got a social media. We got a way for people to contact them. We got an online status. And then we're just lacking the style parameter because we didn't explain to them like they were coming from here, right? And above it in the search form, we had a little push for like you were supposed to select a specific style, like refined or old school or minimal or elegant. So we'll go ahead and actually give them, let me see if I can copy a button here, and I'm going to turn the button into a tag instead. Make a new type of thing.
So there's an interesting question on the chat from Alexander. What's the best portfolio you've seen? And I think that's an interesting question just also for you being on Behance, just sort of more largely also around like all the different portfolio work that you see, like what maybe is the summary of like what makes sort of the best work?
Yeah, I think Actually, Mark Brooks, if in terms of graphic design, Mark's portfolio that I showed you earlier for 99 Magazine is really good. He shoots all of these himself, right? So he does the design work, he like takes it to print, he like does all the checks for that, and then when it does come out in print, you can kind of see like different layouts, something really interesting, like something for your eye to kind of look at. A lot of people, if they were to do graphic design, you just see the PDF, right? Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead, he like kind of does these like clever little right, he like has a background here, and he goes and he edits it, and then he also has flat layouts, and I think that's really great. And then the other thing I always talk about is showing your process. I think Matthias has a really good one of this. This is kind of an older project. So Matthias is one of the co-founders of Behance. I have to put in his last name. He's one of the co-founders of Behance, and he you know, does a lot of work with designing. He does graphic design, but this is one of the awards that he actually designed back in 2012 for 99U, where that they still give out every year at the 99U, and you can kind of see it's like beautiful like shots of just what it looks like. It's this like really beautiful heavy award, in this like glossy black. There's like inscriptions, and at the bottom he also has process shots, and I think that's so great, right? You can kind of see like he has sketches. You can actually see on the right side here, there's like actually like a little cardboard artifact that he's made, right?
Yeah.
Like he's holding it, he like taped it together. I just think that's like so great, and I think that's the kind of work that we really like to see.
Yeah, I think process is so important to show. I think a lot of people, even when you go in for interviews or just to get inspired, people always want to know, like, how'd you do this? What was your thinking to get to this beautiful thing? Sometimes it's less about maybe where you ended up, but also a lot about like the thinking and the process that you had getting there. But also just for looking at people's work on Behance, getting inspired, a lot of it is also like, how did you make this thing? What was, like, you know, what was sort of that process?
Yeah. And also, process is a great way to filter out if you're into hiring or, you know, interviewing people, and you're trying to interview, is that being able to show and talk about your process is the distinguishing factor between a okay designer and a great one, right? It's really like, it shows you the depth and the thinking that someone's put behind it. And a lot of projects, because it involves a ton of people, like a hiring manager might just look at the project and be like, this is a great app for Nike, and you worked at RGA, which is one of the big agencies in the States, and Nike is like just one of their hugest clients, and each of your teams has like 30 to 100 people. You're saying you did the whole app, and then the designer on the other side will be like, I did, and the other person will be like, that doesn't seem right. But if you can show process, right, here's what like I tried, it didn't work, here are some iterations of a bunch of icons I tried, here's like iterations of a bunch of pages I tried, here's what we tested, and it did work, it didn't work, and why. That's the kind of stuff that like makes you stand out from the crowd, instead of just showing a bunch of final mocks and being like, I made it.
Because people want to know also that you can apply that thinking to other projects across the board, right? That it isn't just sort of this one process or one piece that you can make, but that you thought through and you can apply that to other pieces and other challenges.
Yeah. So I've gone ahead and made a tag style to kind of mimic what I've done with, let me see if I can.
Nice. And yeah, thanks for everybody being active on the chat. Don't forget we have this giveaway coming up soon. I know everyone's really excited about the XD socks. So log into Behance, be active on the chat, and you could win the giveaway.
So I just added these tag styles, and I just came up with this on the fly. They're not in my UI kit, but that's okay, right? I just want to make something, and I don't want it to be the same kind of this like rosy color with white text, because that's what I've indicated for links and buttons. So thinking about the consistency between UI elements is useful. So I'm just gonna have it here as a white style, and it's just kind of to indicate maybe this is not the best place for them. They're kind of like lost, right? Oop. Maybe we'll try over here, like right above his profile, and then you'll be like, great, I understand why I see this. And then we'll go ahead and we'll actually try one of the new features that XD released in their newest release, which is being able to have vectors in XD files.
Yes, it's very exciting. Yeah, we definitely want to show this off and let you guys know how to do this as well. But XD just had a release. We're at 5.0, and one of the newest features is that you can now use vector across in CC libraries. So you can now use that in XD. So yeah, Jeannie's going to show it off from going from sort of Illustrator to XD and how this feature works.
Right. So here I have a icon that I downloaded from the Noun project. That's where I've been using the icons from. I didn't design them myself, but it comes with a Creative Commons license. So I'm just going to take this vector object, and I have a libraries panel open. Let me see if I can close these.
And to answer Denise's question, is there a pre-established process you can go through to design? Definitely check out our stream from yesterday. Jeannie went through a whole topic on the beginning around her process and more of that thinking. And then we have a link out to her prototype from yesterday, so we can sort of send that in the chat as well, or take a look. I published that link to Twitter yesterday, so if you check out that link, you can check out Jeannie's process.
Yeah, and we'll update the link today too.
Yeah, we'll update it and tweet it out again. You guys can check it out, just send it in the chat, and yeah.
Yep. So here I have libraries, the libraries panel. You get to it by hitting Windows, Libraries. So here I pulled it out so we could see it more clearly, and then I've added a specific new library called Adobe Live Assets. That's what we're working on today. And then you can see I've already added 2 here, but I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to go ahead. I selected the object I want to select. I want to make and put into my library as an asset. And then I hit this plus button on the bottom left. And it'll give me 2 options because it happens to have a color, in this case black, and it happens to have a graphic also. So if I were to just hit add, I would actually get both. Like the color would become added as a swatch. So I'll show you what that looks like up here. And I don't really need that because it's just not, it's fine. It's not a specific color, so I can just delete it. Or if I were to take a different one, let me see if I can find, oh, nope, not that. This flower, I can add it and just uncheck fill color. I just want the graphic, and boom, there it is. So then I can go back into XD, and I'm gonna open File, Open CC Libraries, yeah. And this opens this little panel that's called Creative Cloud Libraries. I don't know if you guys can see it clearly. The drop down says Adobe Live Assets, which is the library that I had selected. And then here under graphics, you can see all of the vectors that I already, I had just imported in. So I can go ahead and just add those in right now. They're a little blurry. Rendering.
Nice, and I also want to let you guys know, get hyped, we're going to announce the winner of the giveaway from being active in the chat in just a few minutes, so stay tuned for that, for the winner of the socks.
And magazine.
Yeah.
We've got a magazine.
Yeah, and say hi, let us know where you're joining us from. Again, we just want to check in with everyone and let us know what you think of the stream so far, and if there's anything you want to see us go through in the next sort of hour that we're here on the stream.
I think that's enough for now. I'm going to close this library, and I'm just going to make sure to drop these assets in. The lines are really tiny, so I have been having trouble all day kind of putting it in. And again, because I had this kind of overlapping idea before, that things would kind of just be like suspended over the content and moving in that way. I think I'm going to do that. And then also, let's see if we can find a couple more.
I'm seeing some familiar faces on the chat. Yuzu, hello again from Vienna. We have Maya from Vancouver again, hello. Alexander in Russia. Oh, I wonder what time it is over there.
It seems late. It feels late.
Yeah, that's why I asked. Yeah, Felipe from Mexico. Nice. Welcome to the stream. Well, yeah, so the beauty of this new feature in XD as well is using Creative Cloud, you can, like Jeannie had these assets, if you decide that you want to change the color and you have these vector assets, you can go into Illustrator and change it to, change the icon a little bit if you want to tweak part of it or change the color of it. And then when you come back, since it is in the Creative Cloud, it will automatically update wherever you have it in the XD file. So say you're using that icon 100 times across this file, it will update automatically automatically for you if it is a graphic in your CC library.
All right, so, you know, part of the design work that we do is not like just making these screens one at a time. I think that's also partially why I struggle to use Dribble. I really like Dribble, even though, you know, Dribble and Behance, they're both great ways to showcase work. But with Dribble, it's hard because you only have one image and people tend to pick the most beautiful image, right? Maybe in this case, you'd be like, wow, look at this site. It's so clean. But really, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes of, I think I was looking at Danielle's, one of her designs this morning, and I was like, this is great. This is what we would do in real life, which is a bunch of empty states, every single possible empty state. And that's like, you know, when we talk about like working well with development, that's what development wants to know, right? What is the null state? What is 0, right? When there's nothing in here, when there's one thing in here, when the server fails and the entire page can't load, what should it look like? What does a 404 page look like? And that's the kind of stuff that is really critical to think about interim states and default states and like what you would expect to see. So we're going to go ahead and do that with actually this page. I'm going to copy it and paste it over. And I'm going to show you a bunch of interim states for what it would look like if I were to fill out my email, and also a bunch of interim states for when I'm looking at someone's profile and they don't have a ton of stuff on there.
Nice, yeah. And Paul says the icons feel quite Art Deco. He loves that. I agree. It's not bad. And good morning, Rebecca, joining us in New Zealand. And so we do have our winner today for the giveaway of the lucky new owner of these XD socks. And so our winner today, drum roll, is, ooh, we have lots of drums in the room, Zulma Olia. So congratulations, you are the proud new owner of these XD socks, and someone from the live team is going to chat you separately in the Behance chat to let you know how you can get these fabulous socks.
So I'm going ahead and I've looked at my style guide and I'm changing some stuff here to account for my different like sort of like states. So here is a state if I were to kind of hover over the, you know what, we're going to skip the hover. We'll just go straight into like, what if I clicked your email? I'm going to go ahead and give you a little browser, a cursor here to, it's blinking, it's going, nice. You've selected me. And then the selected state would kind of look like this. And I just like dragging in some cursors and making sure that all of the ways that I've thought about the interaction, they're like pretty clear. Like you could look at this, anyone could look at this comp and be like, yeah, you're clicking on your email. So here it is. All right. Nice. And then I'll go ahead and I also like showing totally broken states. So let's say you were to type in a bunch of gibberish. It's not an email. And you try to, you know, you selected the, you try to hit start chat now, what would happen? Probably need some sort of error state to say like, hey, you need to enter a valid email, right? And you probably also need to enter a valid drop-down type. So one way I can do this is by introducing more text like this as like a small subset. In this case, I've kind of restricted myself because this section is so short. So maybe we can kind of look at having an alternative type, like a tooltip kind of show up and say like, hey, you didn't put in the right email, or like, you know, some similar things like password requirements kind of use this kind of paradigm. So we'll go ahead and I'll just make a little tooltip here. You can see what I really like using this little hack. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a little box, change the fill of it to be, we'll make it like a angry red.
So we have a question on the live stream from Adobe Live themselves. Danielle, Jeannie, what is the best way to think about white space? How do you decide what works and what has enough focus so the focus is not lost?
Oh, that's a good way to think about it. It's a good question, actually. I think white space is always about readability, legibility, and accessibility. So, lots of things. But they're kind of the same thing, right? In other words, like, could someone read it and immediately understand like what's happening here? Is the focus and the kind of when you look at a page and you're like, I know exactly what I'm going to do here. I know exactly what this page is doing. It should feel kind of immediate, right? I don't really like pages where you land on it and it's just like, could be anything.
Yeah.
Where should I click? Don't know. Everything is in like size 11 font in light gray on
I think
white.
a lot of it's, also about hierarchy, like having that correct hierarchy and having it so the user knows sort of what's the most important, where should my eye go, and how should I sort of read through this page and this experience to give them a, simple experience all the way through.
Yep.
So I think white space helps with that and like not being cluttered and having this clean UI, but a lot of that also is understanding how to create the right hierarchy.
Totally.
Yeah. And I also want to mention we have the contest going on, the daily contest with the dashboard UI kits. And so you have just like about 25 minutes to submit those. And Jeannie and I will be picking a winner at the end, but maybe we can take a look at some more. We'll take a look at 2 more submissions that have come in. So we have this one here for the theater.
Wow, I love the split screen. Yep.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So they added the transition, which is really nice, and taken this UI kit and added a lot more personality to it. We have the music theater, acting theater, dance theater. Let's see, where do we want to go next?
Acting.
We'll click on acting theater. Very nice. You have the scroll all the way down, so it looks like you've added a lot of images in here and a lot of new content, which is really nice. And then I think we'll click on subscription, music theater, what else is there? Budget and more. Wow, I've done a lot of nice styling in here. Select month and log out. Very nice. It seems like a really nice sort of like full design. You have a bit more stylization to this UI kit, which is really nice. So thanks for submitting. And we'll take a look at one more called Space Explorer.
Wow, that's
which
a
already,
cool
like,
graphic.
I like the diagonal starting to make this UI kit a little bit more unique. So we have the username, so adding that little detail of signing in, which is nice, and then clicking login. Cool, so yeah, totally changed the skin a bit. We have a darker UI here. Let's see, where should I go next? I think that's the full, but this is great. Yeah, we only have 3 screens, but I really like that you've changed up the style a lot and really changed a lot of the detail in here. Added sort of this right side with the different sort of specifications of the planets, which is really fun. So great submissions, you guys. Keep them coming, and we will pick a winner at the very end of the stream today.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, so back to my screen. I've gone and so we have 3 versions of the screen right now. We have the standard landing version. We have a version where you can, you're hovering over the email, and then if it's incorrect, you enter a valid email. I think probably my UI kit, I didn't think closely enough about how close this color is to red, which implies an error state. So it almost feels like if I could do a refinement, I would probably go back and like refine that portion of like, maybe this isn't the best way to make a hover state. But it's just something I'm thinking about, and that's why I like high fidelity, right? You're doing it and you're seeing it and you're like, wow, actually we've made a fundamental design mistake earlier. I'm gonna go back and rectify that before I even show a developer, instead of just kind of showing wireframes and then going back in and being like, whoops, that's not right. And then now I'm gonna go and make a totally empty state. So what happens if a florist decides to just go rogue? They've decided they're not going to put in a photo. They're not. They don't.
This is it. I can't put in a photo.
Yeah, I'm not going to put in any photos. What this would kind of look like here. So I'll go ahead and move these up. Kind of accounting for my little graphics here. And they've gone ahead and they were just like, this is my name. They didn't even write the right thing. They didn't give me an email. I know that maybe I'll have in the sidebar, they have to have a location, but then they didn't even put in a description. So what would that look like, right? Maybe what we can do is we can say this, we'll still call this Lambert. Like the studio really didn't care. And then in gray text, to indicate that it's not text from the user, I'll say Lambert Floral Studio hasn't uploaded hasn't added their description. Please stand by. Or maybe not please stand by. We'll just leave it like that. And we'll make this italic to really knock in this idea that you know, it's not the service, it's that the person hasn't uploaded anything. And then we'll even give them a nice kind of empty state here.
So we have a question for you on the chat. Aaron Fields is wondering, how long have you been designing and what led you to UX design?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been
good question. Thanks for sending it in.
Yeah, I've been in design since 2011. What year are we in?
I'm not the
2018.
Right person to ask. We are in 2018.
So 7 years. And I started off, I didn't go to design school. I was actually getting my master's in English literature. And I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was one semester away from graduating. So I still graduated with my master's in English literature, which I have not used since. And I was living with someone who was a graphic designer, and I just thought what she did was so cool, right? I was working so much in like these abstract ideas. I was writing 80-page thesis papers on like Old English, you know, from, you know, the Celtics not the Celtics, from like things like Beowulf, that in a language that no one was going to read anymore.
Wow.
And so it was like super abstracted out. And then I lived with a graphic designer, and she was making stuff that was tangible, like things that existed in real life. She was making pamphlets and books, and I thought it was so great because I worked in the abstract. And so she kind of taught me a little bit about graphic design. She was going to school at SVA at the time, and so she took a class with Debbie Millman, who is the president of AIGA, or I think she was at one point. And I thought, she taught me a lot of what Debbie taught, and I think Debbie's just like a great resource for like learning. And from there, I just started taking on more jobs, first with graphic design, and then later with UI and UX. And at the time, UI UX was so young of a field that, you know, people really thought it was the same. They were like, oh, you can design a book. Can you design an app icon? And then from an app icon, they're like, oh, we also need icons for the toolbar. And then from a toolbar, they're like, oh, also, do you know what it would look like if we had a search bar? And so like that just kind of like at the time rolled into an industry. It was all kind of one. Nowadays, you probably wouldn't ask someone who is a graphic designer necessarily to design an app icon. But back then, it was the wild, wild west. So.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Jeanette on the chat was asking, you know, if anyone else had a degree that they weren't using. Hers was chemistry. But I think that is something that's sort of common is not everyone, you know, studies or gets a master's or a degree in something that they end up sort of pursuing their whole life later on. So it's interesting to hear sort of your story of getting into the design realm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, almost maybe half of the designers on my team have a design degree and the other half doesn't. So I think I love people with design degrees. I think they bring a great sense of nuance and depth to what they do. There's a lot of like, you know, academic excellence and rigor, especially nowadays with like programs. So I think that's great too. It's just, you know, different. Like I said, no career path is linear and no educational path is linear either. So I've gone ahead and just thought about like, what would it look like if nothing's happening here? I can't even say start chat now because I've made their icon, their little like indicator dot gray. And I said like usually responds within 2 hours. I think those are really useful to kind of say like on Yelp, they have that. So here I'm gonna actually just say like, start a conversation. So in other words, instead of start chat now, because chat implies like a currentness, like a immediacy that kind of like live implies. We're gonna just go ahead and do start a conversation to say like, hey, if you start conversating with them, you're gonna be able to see a record of all your messages, and that'll be pretty straightforward. I'll make this short since there's a whole lot of nothing down here, and you'll see that the dotted line is the quote-unquote fold of this page. I don't really believe in above and below the fold, but it's useful, at least for demonstration purposes, to be like, hey, here's what you would see immediately as your hand hit this page.
Yeah, and it is nice. I know someone on the chat was asking earlier what that dotted line was, and so yes, it is, you know, above or below the fold, which just as a designer is always good to keep in mind what people are going to see in that first time experience. So knowing where that fold is very important. And I do want to note that there's about 10 minutes to get your submissions in for the contest, so make sure you send those in. I think we'll take a look at 2 more that have come in while Jeannie continues to work on the design. And so we have one up here that is sites, servers. So we have a server dash. Let's see, we're gonna click on an error. And nice, there's a nice use of blur happening here. And I can close that out. I can click on the error again and close it out. Nice. So I think what's really nice, you don't have to make a ton of screens. I think we've seen like a nice variation of people who have made a ton of screens versus also people who have started to just make very stylized and gone like away from the dashboard UI kit and made it really unique, which we're definitely looking for in our submission. So great work. And then we have Weathered here. Welcome to Weathered. Very different start screen, so I'm interested to see what happens next. Okay, so we're into Weathered. I'm gonna log in. We're in Paris. It looks like they changed all of these 2 locations here. Log in again. Very nice. Great. So yeah, send in your submissions. We have about 9 minutes left if you really want to get those in, and we will be picking the winner at the end of the hour.
Great. All right, so I think I've ended kind of this empty state of what if Lambert were to give me nothing, just straight up nothing. So I can, you know what, I should give this a little bit of a stronger shadow so that when there's nothing, it looks like the little white boxes still visible. It's actually kind of hard to see on yours. It looks very different on my screen than it does on the
Yeah, it might be getting washed out a little bit, but yeah, there's definitely a bit more drop shadow.
Yeah. I've also just given them a nice big empty state, so I've taken my little logo image here and I've just made it the empty state white on grade. It's no biggie. And then some empty states here, this idea that I'll start a conversation and be able to like see when that person will respond. So I'm gonna go ahead and do an onboarding pop-up. And then also I just wanted to make a comment that I really liked the dashboard that was designed earlier. I think dashboard design is really interesting, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, is like, how do we do CMS, like a content management system? Can we make it look nice? And one of the projects, my favorite projects I've worked on at Behance, is something called Moonbeam, which is for an internal tool for our development team so that they can continuously deploy development. So they're pushing stuff live all the time. And I kind of designed an interface for that, and that was a really interesting problem and process when you're designing for someone who works for your company and can just walk over and be like, hey, I hate this. I actually love that, right? That was really direct feedback from the person who's your actual user. You know, that's also why we really like it when you write in tickets or you tweet us for Behance, because we actually respond and we read those. We sit right next to our community support team, and there's nothing like hearing from your users directly, like, hey, this looks broken, or like, I uploaded something and I don't understand why this happened. And we take those responses really seriously, and we prioritize them in our roadmap accordingly. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that we do, like feature development and integration work, but I think it's like a big part of like. Yeah, your guys' feedback is really important to us, and we have Paul Tranny.
Oh my God! It's Valentine's
treats
Day.
Or something.
Do you mind?
Buy the socks. I know we can put him by the socks.
Some nice XOXO. Some nice little cupcakes.
These are very sweet.
And then you can pick whichever one. You could even grab the, I don't know your status, but there's the Singles Unite.
Singles Unite. I'm a little starstruck because I've only seen Paul on live. I've never actually met him in person.
Oh man!
So you guys are meeting a famous person right now.
Wow! Bold statements. Someone says that they love your hair. Well, thank you. But yes, where were we before the wonderful Paul Tranny interruption with sweets? We were talking about your guys' feedback into the products, and I do want to take another note on that because someone in the chat was asking about some XD features and if we were going to have reflow. And on that note, if we switch over, I just do want to re-mention that we have Adobe XD uservoice.com. And so like Jeannie was saying, like our products, we really want to hear from you guys what type of features you want in these products, and we prioritize based off of that. So we do take this into account, what users are saying. And so on uservoice.com, you can submit different features that you want to see, or if you see one, there are a lot here that are pretty common, we're hearing a lot, you can vote for the ones that you want to see and sort of bring it up a bit more on the list. And as you can see, the team is also feature started. So we'll mark these as they're being worked on, so you have a sense of like, you know, what's in the backlog, what's being prioritized right now, and you can really help define what the future of this product is going to be.
Yeah. You know, the XD team takes feature requests really seriously. I think they're just always interested in seeing like how people use their stuff. There's nothing more exciting than that.
There's some really exciting stuff coming up. Later this afternoon, I'm actually going to be user testing some new features that they're working on. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to say what we're working on next, but there's a lot of features in here also that we're keeping in mind, and the team is testing out with designers in-house like myself, as well as other users outside the company, to get a sense of, you know, how the tools are working to make the best features possible. And Tim on the chat, I'm sorry, don't think I have any sneaks for today. I can think about some sneaks for tomorrow.
Yeah, if you could just give huge teasers every time and freak out the XD team, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like, you know, I'm going to go into my user test today and they're going to be like, we heard on the chat that you were telling everyone all this stuff. Yeah, Tim is mentioning on the chat Project Evolution, which is actually a project that Talon, who's the lead designer of Adobe XD, him and I were on a stream a few months ago, and we worked on a project called Project Evolution that was sort of rethinking artboards. And so Talon and I were on the stream designing for XD using XD. It was very, very inception. You just saw like an XD like interface, and then XD within that, and XD within that, and yeah, I couldn't tell it was real anymore.
Inception.
It was pure
XDception.
XDception, I like that.
All right, so I've gone ahead and I'm just thinking about like a little pop-up here. One trick I like to do is if I'm doing something that requires an overlay, you can see there's so many elements. Like let's say I want to move the overlay. How am I doing this? I'm locking my elements. So I've gone ahead and I've selected all the elements. I got an object. I can unlock them right now, or I can lock them again. And then that way when I place something over it, it just allows me to like manipulate that pop-up by itself without being like, oh God, are things like changing in the back? So here I just like to give it some consistency. So now I'm back at this idea of like, what will happen if I hit start chat now, right? So if I hit start chat now, I'm gonna hit them with the onboarding pop-up. They've been a little bit committed. They've given me their email address, and I'm gonna say like, sign up to chat with the studio. So anytime I can be as specific as possible. Anytime I can give context. I know the Flora Studio's name. I'm gonna drop it in here. I'm gonna explain to you why you're gonna sign up, because you wanna chat with them. So those like kind of consistency ideas are really important for this. And then I can go ahead and ungroup this and whoop.
Nice, and I think it'd be great to hear also from you, you know, working on the Behance team. I know that you use XD, designing for Behance. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at Behance we use XD for all of our files. I think that's a great way for us to show you know, what's possible, and also to give direct feedback. We work with some of the XD designers actually work from the New York office, and so it's great to be able to walk downstairs and be like, hey, we noticed that there's a bug here, or this isn't working, or we'll try a beta and be like, whoa, this is really great, we should push this, you know, feature more. And I think that is a big part of our, you know, we are, like we talked about, like user feedback. We are the user, we're gonna give feedback. And then also we've just found it to be really useful sorry, for collaborating with each other. It just works so quickly. You can see everything I do. You know what? I'm going to show you a site I built for Behance, and then what the XD file for that would look like. So we just made something called Year in Review.
Oh yes, great.
Yeah. Yeah, I design these little mini sites every year to kind of talk about like what would be like you know, what's gone on in Behance this year, and like, you know, what's really beautiful and inspirational. I think people really like that. So there's like lots of these like super beautiful graphics. There's like, you know, just big images, like a nice little thing of video. You can hover and see what Behance looked like in 2007. It had a lot of
really
orange.
fun to see the past.
Yeah. You know, little hover states, just kind of thinking about that here. Here's 99U. Right, you saw the magazine earlier. So it's just a great little site. I'm gonna close that.
Yeah, and we should share that link out on the chat. It's a great link if you haven't seen the year in review. But it's awesome that you guys, kind of like Matthias is saying, Behance sneaks, a little bit of the inside scoop on seeing Jeannie's XD files.
Yeah, so here's my XD file for that. And you can see that it's just so great to be able to show my boss, my developers, my colleagues, what am I working on and how I've been thinking about it. So the top here is everything that I actually delivered to the devs. So I kind of showed them like a quick, this was just like a thought process, like a quick throw together I had of the animation, which we didn't end up doing, which is fine, right? No harm, no foul. And then you can see here like each of the individual pages that you just saw. It's like literally exactly what you just saw. It's great. I think the font has actually changed here because I'm using a loaner computer, so the font here should be APRQ, so I should have synced it from Typekit.
Yeah, Nicholas is like, whoa, how many screens do you have there? And to note on that, I mean, you have a lot of screens in here. Look about how fast this file is.
Yeah.
XD is super fast. You can have a ton of artboards.
Yeah. And then what's great is you can actually see down here, what I did beforehand was I had actually made a bunch of templates with garbage text and garbage images. Not garbage, but like non-real. You know, I just kind of was like, hey, this would be so cool if I could have stories, and I was just testing different things. Like, what if you could hover over one of these links and they would just give you one image from like a series of overlapping images?
Yeah, what was sort of the process to get to this final sort of state in the design? How much exploration was done?
Yeah, so this is all the exploration for like template-y stuff, and then this is all the exploration for like, you can see it's called archives here. It's just like of all the things that I've tried and images, and like I really loved this layout, but it ultimately didn't make the cut, but that's great, right? I save that kind of like documentation so that I can refer to it later. I can kind of like explain, like, and sometimes someone will ask you, and this is a totally valid critique, is like, why did you choose that? And the answer is, like, if you're a really great designer, you'll have sat down and thought about a bunch of options, and you can be like, oh yeah, actually, well, we considered this, which is what you brought up, and that's a great idea, but, you know, we ran into these problems. We realized that if we did it like this, the scroll wouldn't work, or the image would break in a weird way when we broke it down to responsive tablet. So you kind of show your work, and I think that's like super important here. So you can kind of see different...
Yeah, and it ties back to also process. Like if you have some of these explorations, it's also nice to kind of know in the process when you're showing that, whether it's on like your Behance when you have your final product, or just when you want to show off, you know, your thinking behind the entire project.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. But I'm
cool to
glad
see.
You asked. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see like a real working file as opposed to like this, like, you know, fun but ultimately not real file. So I'm going to make this actually a little small. I feel like this pop-up is huge, and I don't need a ton of content from... You know what? I actually really like the design that you guys the designs that you guys had made for the sign-up flow. So maybe I'll do something like that. I'll go ahead and make this bigger, and then duplicate it, make it half. See if I can pull this out, and just duplicate the image you saw before as a left side image here. So I'll go back and find that one. Right. And just to give it some, like I said, some sense of consistency and like, hey, where you were before and where you are now, we kind of know where you are, and like the rationale. I don't know why it's not letting me. There you go. Select things. And you know what? I can look at my grid and actually do it to my grid. It's kind of not good that I just like arbitrarily threw up a page.
So Maya on the chat, I know you have to start studying, it looks like. So thanks for joining us on Adobe Live, but we're gonna continue on with the stream, and we'll be announcing the winners soon from the contest today. So for the rest of you, stay tuned. We'll be announcing those soon. Maybe actually we'll take a look at 2 more right now of the submissions we have in, and then in just a couple minutes we'll go through the rest of them and pick our winner for today.
Yeah.
But so it looks like we have the wallet tracker. So I'm going to click in this item, and it looks very different from the dashboard UI kit of what we have so far, so that's great.
Ooh, cryptocurrency, a hot topic.
Yeah. Very nice. Let's see, what's the next screen here? So I can search for wallet address. Looks like if I click in here and type, it sort of limits my search here. And I can close that out. Very nice. Let's see if I'm missing anything. Oh, it looks like this coin filter. If I click on here, so a lot of nice little filtering and search elements that decided to go into on your dashboard UI kit. Very nice. Awesome. Are you sure you want to delete this wallet? Yes. Oh no. Cool. So thanks for sending that one in. We're going to take a look at one more right now. So we have Alina Kids Fashion. Oh, and it looks like we have, they shared out the spec version. So this is what we talked about a little bit earlier on the stream. There's 2 different links that you can share out. And this one has even, if I click on here, I can see all of the specs. Cute. And this is a beta right now for XD, but it's awesome to see. So we have the Alina Kids Fashion, and the next screen, we have the rest of the dashboard looking at the customer facing part. And then for products, looks like we have sort of the little model in here. So very nice. It's great to see you sort of testing out the different type of link with the dashboard, with the design specs for XD. Cool. So yeah, we will take a look at the, I think we have 2 last submissions just for now. For the rest of you who didn't make it into the challenge for today, don't worry. There's another stream on after us with Peter, and the challenge will continue, and you can submit again for today's daily challenge. But we will be picking a winner in just a few minutes, so stay tuned.
Yep. So I've gone ahead and I've populated a couple of form fields here. And what's nice is that, you know, we already know from before that someone had already added their email down here. Maybe I should actually update that comp behind there. So we can actually just put that email here, or better yet, kind of give you a little bit of thinking. Oh no.
And I think what we should do is also make sure that we have time. We should link some of these up and make sure that we share it out. I think yesterday's link was just sort of the first portion. We didn't have some of the designs of the landing page in there, but I want to make sure that we have all of this linked out so we can share it with you guys and get your guys' feedback and thoughts as we go into tomorrow's stream. Jeannie and I will be back on tomorrow, same time, 11 to 1, and we'll be continuing these designs. I think Jeannie wants to go through a little bit more of also like how we're going to make this responsive and like what it would look like on the mobile experience. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back tomorrow.
All right, so I've gone ahead and I already know that person's email, so I'm just gonna use that as content here. I think that's kind of a nice little touch. Maybe we can make this bold. Nope, that's book. Bold. I don't have bold. Heavy. Yeah, there we go. This is not my email. Don't email this person.
I was about to say, I was like, whoa, being generous with the stream.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
And then I'm just gonna, let's just say that your name and some terms of servicey stuff is all you need, because we already have your email. Oh, we need a password. That's what we need.
Yes. But maybe for now we'll hook some of this up as well. And sort of, we can go through again sort of what we've covered today. Because there's been a lot. You've gotten through a lot.
Yeah. I feel much more productive today than
yesterday?
Yeah.
Huh.
Sorry, one last thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and make the password field so this doesn't make no sense tomorrow when we look at it.
Oh, the password field.
Yeah.
Nice. And so Nicholas has a question on the stream. Thanks for sending it in. When designing for responsive, do you have desktop and mobile in the same XD file?
I do. I try to do everything in one file. I think it's important to be able to show. Also, because with XD, you don't need to like, it's not hard to make stuff in one file, so you might as well just do it, right? Like originally when I used to design in Photoshop, it would just be, Photoshop is great, it's just not really designed for UI UX. And so, you know, each comp that I had to make was just increasing in file size, so I had to really pick and choose my battles with that. But now I'm like, I think I'll be fine, so I just kind of throw it all together in one. All right.
Yeah, and so he's wondering, if so, do you present both?
I do. I always present every possible thing. I might not show it in like the linear way, like how do I say this? I'll show the flow in a linear way, and then I'll have all these like side screens of like error states and mobile and tablet. And I'll try to just have it all there, and then just walk through first the main flow of like, here's what's gonna happen, and then also be like, but I accounted for empty state, default state, mobile, tablet, etc., etc. All right, so I am reasonably okay with this. Probably could use a little more work, but that's all right. I'm gonna center it on the page. And we're gonna go ahead and just hook things up in the prototype section so that you know. And this one's important because, right, if we look at our artboard here, there's stuff in between that kind of wouldn't make sense because we have our questions from yesterday. We have the mood board here. So I wanna link from over here down here. You can see in the tiny little boxes on my screen. So I'll go ahead and I'll say that from here, if I select one of these, it would actually take me to this screen. And then from this screen, it would take me to this screen. From this screen, it would take me to this screen. And from this screen, it would take me to this one. And we're gonna skip over our empty state version of this because that's just like a side screen. So let's just try it out right now. Let's go to my first landing page. I'll close. So I select location. Wow. I select California. Great. I hover. I select my style. Refined. Great. I select one of these cards. Let me see if I can do it from here. Maybe I should link up. Make this longer so you can see all of it, like so, and then link up this card also. Great. So from here I can scroll down. I'm gonna select this one. It still says chat now because I never really updated that one, and it would land me in Lambert's.
Nice.
Wow. Love this guy's work. I think I'm gonna try to chat with him. So I hit chat now. Oh, I have to put in an email address. I put in gibberish. Sorry, man, you have to enter in a valid email address to create one. All right, I put in a real one, and boom, I have a little sign up flow.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we should definitely update the link, and we can share this out and get everybody's feedback on it as well. Let us know what you think of Jeannie's design so far. If you have any feedback, you can leave it just directly in the XD file or the link, and there's a comment section, so leave some comments as well, and then we'll be finishing the flow tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, is there something specific you want to continue with for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit about responsive. That's like everyone's big question is like, how do you do responsive? So, I had shown it a little bit here, but we can do more of that of like, what would this page look like responsively, et cetera, especially with things like drop downs, and you don't have hover states. So that kind of, those little side interactions I think are really important. And then ideally we could also look at, maybe after we look at the contest, we can I'll update with a few loading states, and I'm just going to take from paradigms I already know, but those that might be the final touch for today.
Yeah, that sounds great. Why don't you Slack me the link, and then we can send it out as well. I know Tim, yes, thank you, shared it on the chat, so you guys can all take a look and click through yourselves. But we will tweet it out so you guys can also take a look there later on. So great, yeah, send me that link. But for now, we're gonna go through and look at the final 2 submissions we have today for the challenge and then, or for the contest, and we will pick the winner. Okay, so we have, looks like a very different experience. We were seeing a lot of sort of web dashboards. This one is more of a mobile, so I'm gonna log in.
Another
very
big
cool,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice seeing you change into a mobile design. We haven't seen that at all yet today. To the wallet, so you can sort of open this up or collapse it. Very nice. Cool, so very simple. I think we only have 3 screens, but I like that you changed the whole format a bit in, off of a web design. Cool, and then we have one last one. Again, very different skin. We haven't seen a design like this so far, so it looks like I'm gonna click on this icon here, see the mail dashboard, and it looks like instead of having text, you put some icons here, which is pretty nice. And then I can go back to the home. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Very nice, awesome. So these have been some really great submissions. I don't know if you've had any specific standouts for you between any of the ones we've seen so far today, but I think we can start to pick today's winner.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I loved Space Explorers a lot. I think everyone's was really great. I think,
yeah.
you know, picking a topic that you're interested in is important because then it helps you kind of think about what you would like to do, especially with stuff like this, because it's not a real project, right? It's a mock project. So I felt like the space one was, there was some obvious, like, unless you just memorized that this bit of data, or like, you know, you kind of, you must have had some background knowledge to make this. So I thought that was kind of nice, a nice touch. And the change in UI was really nice. And then 11th, the one on the right.
Yeah.
I thought this one was really great. I could imagine myself using this in real life. I was recently in the Czech Republic in Prague, and it was actually I was trying to find a ballet to go visit. So I kind of imagine that this is very similar, right? You would be able to go here and see like, wow, here's the acting theater, and I could book it, and there's a promotion.
Yeah. I
felt like this one definitely displayed a level of work that is very surprisingly like in depth for such a short little challenge. So
yeah, I agree. I also like this little nuance they have, sort of like, right, the one that's selected is a little bit higher up, and you click acting theater and you kind of see that little mini interaction. You can imagine it happening on the site, which is fun.
Yeah. I think that's the kind of stuff that is where, you know, UI design really shines, is showing you like UI does, like, it's not beautiful. It's not just beautiful for the sake of being beautiful, but beautiful that works towards a purpose, right? So you kind of know, wow, okay, these are tabs. So I think this one is my favorite. Yeah.
Awesome. So, which one are we calling the winner today?
This one.
This one. So congratulations, whoever's design we have chosen for today, the music theater. And thank you all for submitting. We have another stream on after this where if you missed today's challenge, you can still submit during Peter's stream right after this. But I think we will be back tomorrow from 11 to 1 again, and Jeannie will be continuing her designs. So make sure to tune back in. It's been great having everyone on the chat, being so active, and I know everybody loves these socks, so we will have another giveaway tomorrow for these socks. I don't know why they are amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't know if you want to continue. I know you had like a couple other pieces in the design that you want to get to with some of the error states and stuff.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I'm going to borrow from actually one of my coworkers designs Adobe Portfolio, which is a site that allows you to create your portfolio website. If you already have a Behance, you could just, it's like a one click to make a portfolio from your Behance projects. So it's super great if you're already existing Behance user, and it's, I mean, even if you don't have Behance projects, it's really useful. It's designed for creatives to showcase their work. And then what's even better is that it's included with your Creative Cloud subscription. Even if you have a Creative Cloud subscription that's photo only for like photography, like Lightroom, Photoshop, Portfolio is the other thing that gets kind of tossed in there. And a lot of people don't know that, right? Yeah. Like they're like, oh, I have to go find a website builder and it's a whole process. But with Portfolio, it's already there. And I really like the kind of interaction that they have. They have this little loading bar that goes like at the top. It's like a strip of color. We don't use that on Behance because our nav at the top is pretty dark. But I think since here we have a white background and we kind of have this like really nice color that we could emphasize. So I'll just go ahead and make a version of this and just kind of make sure that we show, and I'll unlink this. I wonder how I can, none, great. Go ahead and design and just throw in a little loading state, just so when I talk to development, they're like, hey, what's gonna happen when this page loads? I'll just be like, this is what happens. So
yeah, it's nice to see you're sort of thinking through all of the experience and not just sort of like these glam moments that you have, but really like the full user experience of what happens even in like these loading moments or the error moments, which are really key to the user experience, and they might not be as glamorous as some of the other designs to do, but they're very important still to make sure to cover and make sure that that experience makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's how you go from being a designer who just shows mock projects like into someone who really can flesh out a design and like send it to development. Really is like showing those like little in-between states.
Yeah.
So there it is. That wasn't hard.
Nice.
All I did was just think like, you know, it would just kind of like load to the end of the page, and then when the page is refreshing, it could like maybe give you a little white background. Like,
nice, yeah. And Johnny on the stream is saying UX is the space between screens.
yes.
Very well said.
Truth. Preach. So here, we'll just give it a little like a light fill here so that you know that the page is loading, right? Not too bad. All right. So I think that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll come back and we'll maybe flesh out a little bit more of the onboarding process, do some responsive screens, and see if we can link everything up, because right now my links are pretty straightforward. They're just screen to screen to screen, but that's probably not how like you would expect, right? You should kind of expect something to happen when you like click on like certain buttons and, you know, the X's and these little side things. I never really did that, so I think we should go ahead and link those up.
Yeah, I think tomorrow would be interesting to see. I don't know if you want to zoom out too. Like, it's great to see like Jeannie's gone through a lot in today's stream and yesterday's stream combined, and created a lot of these great screens and talk through like your process and your thinking while you're going through it. Be interesting to get your thinking on sort of more of the responsive design as we move forward with the rest of the designs for your floral design mocks here. And so yeah, make sure that you tune in again tomorrow. Jeannie and I will be back on from 11 to 1, and it was great having everybody so active in the chat today. And we have another stream, so stay tuned with Peter. He'll be on next. And so thank you guys.
I was told so many stories, and I kept them in my stomach. Lies of truth, fake smiles of blood money. I lost cause at a loss for words, trying to keep my tone down. What I'm saying's absurd, unusual, the context unique, buried in the depths of metaphorical speech. A hidden message, pull the infinite strings, reconnect the ends and pretend to justify the means. Parallel, we're reading the same page, turn days into literature simple as loose change. It was perfect, or at least that's what I'm told. Courage is dead, spending my life fearing the cold. I was useless, feeling like dead weight, plain as day, introducing when handshakes. Originality was spread across the board, intricate self-worth, I'm searching for more. where rain doesn't fall on my fields. It takes a drought to avoid all the secrets that I concealed, hidden within the dust-covered land behind the city. The street lights are dim and the fog is always walking with me. It's nothing new, my eyes adjusted to the scene, flickering on and off, it's just the daily routine. I grab a hold of time, forcing not to leave. The weeds grow sporadic in my home is where I'm quarantined. Thinking less, move the top to where the fuel rests, giving all I got to breathe life to the common sense. Moving the top to where the fuel rests, giving all I got to breathe life to your silhouette. Silhouette, 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 silhouette. Each one of us has our own destiny. A place where we come from and a place where we're going. Sometimes what we see or touch might be rough or rigid, like a wax painting a sound, stretched to fill the holes in the life we've been living. And each one of us has a story, different plots intertwined and connected. We pass in the street, but all we notice are the vibes that are reflected. Question is, do we take or deflect? It seems heavy, but when I rolled my hands was steady. The whites of his eyes seen from the paper till I was ready. Frustration became more common than being calm and outcast. Walked in the motion of every song till it fades. I washed away the shades of color, peeled back the winter, bringing light to my summer. I spent the longest time trying to decide on who to be. My destiny manifests, my mind's in the open sea. See, I feel better when I'm alone. Escape my own past, creation of time zones I flipped. See my eyes focus on every trip, reaching for the sky becomes harder with every hit till it clears. The smoke settles on all my fears, rain drops and covers the remains of every tear that I flip. See my eyes focus on every trip, reaching for the sky becomes harder with every hit. With every hit, every hit, every hit.
Church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit and you know it.